Good evening. Hope everyone's having a safe holiday. If you hear popping in the background, it's my neighbors. Sorry, it's very distracting. I'm already bad enough with fact patterns and coming up with stuff like that, and these poppings are driving me crazy, and all the explosions of the fireworks. Anyway, to the presentation. First, a sole proprietorship. Uh, it is one human owner. It is formed by one person who decides to create a business. That person must use his or her own personal assets and personal wealth to create the business. Management, that one person has complete authority. The business is taxed as an extension of the owner. The owner assumes unlimited liability. The owner is an agent, but he may hire employees as agents. And the owner may terminate the business once all his debts and contracts have been settled. So, this is the easiest form of business. Basically, if I decided to create a car wash shop where people drop their cars off with me, I wash them, and I give it back to them. That's my business. There it is. I own it. I operate it. I'm the only employee. I could decide to hire an employee to help dry the cars or something, but that would basically be it. But the main problem is I would assume complete liability and responsibility for all the cars. So if I was washing a car and I accidentally scratched it or wrecked it or something, then they could hold me personally, completely liable, and they could take out the damages out of my house or anything because the business is considered an extension of myself, not its own entity. Next would be a general partnership. Obviously, a partnership requires two people. They share ownership of the business, but the business is its separate entity. Uh, it's formed by when more than one person agrees to conduct business together. Uh, but the partners must use their own personal wealth as a sole proprietorship. Management, they both have equal say in management, but certain acts require unanimous support of the partners. Continued, partners are taxed based on the profit or losses of the business, and for liability reasons, partners are personally liable for debts and torts. The partners are agents of each other and the partnership, and the termination occurs when one partner ceases to be a partner. That could be by death, retirement, or personal reasons. So, say that same car wash business that I had, uh, say I decide to recruit Tim uh, to go into business together, where we, you know, run a car wash business. He would obviously have to agree, and we would both have equal say in the business itself. But this right here, where it says certain acts require unanimous support of the partners, that would be basically the major decisions. Like, say the business started out of my house where people would drop off their cars. Tim and I decide, well, my house isn't big enough for our business, so we decide to lease a plot of land. If there's a plot of land that I like that Tim doesn't like, that'd be a problem because that's the type of decision that would need unanimous support of both partners. And the business would be terminated if Tim decides that I'm too bossy and decides to leave, or if one of us dies or something happens along those lines, which would be unfortunate because if I die and Tim has my business, I mean, the world would be a sad place without me. Anyway, a limited liability partnership, or LLP. The partnership is its own entity, uh, but the partners must file what's called a statement of qualification to that state's Secretary of State, and they must vote. They must have a unanimous vote to decide to become an LLP. Capitalization based on the personal wealth of the partners, as before. Management, partners have equal authority, as before. Uh, the differences with taxation, they must send in annual reporting, like annual reports. separate than what they would if it was a general partnership. Liability, only liable for partner obligations. I'll explain that in a minute. Agency, as before, partners are agents of other partners and the partnership. And termination, it's the business dissolves based on the partnership act of the state that the partnership is in. So it really just depends on what state you live in. Back to liability point, there's what's called partial shield states and fully shield states, which determine the degree of how much the partner is liable for whatever happens. A partner obligation would be running the business itself. So back to our little car wash example, Tim and I have this business. We're partners and we own this business. We hire several employees that are actually doing the car washing, where Tim and I do the managing of the business. So a partner obligation would be a manager thing. So if Tim committed a tort while he was doing his partnership obligations, then Tim would be liable. I wouldn't necessarily be liable for Tim's actions at that point. Next, a limited partnership. Again, the business is its own entity. A limited partnership is formed. Sorry, I'm distracted because of all these fireworks. A limited partnership is formed when a limited partner agrees to help finance a business with a general partner. Now, different than a partnership, both partners have equal say, whereas a limited partner doesn't really run the business. He basically writes the check that helps finance the partnership. Capitalization, the limited partner helps finance the business. Management, the limited partner acts as an investor, whereas the general partner actually manages the business. Taxes, it's not subject to federal taxation as separate entities. It's taxed as if it was an extension of the general partner. Liability, the general partners are personally liable for the debts, but the limited partner have limited liabilities as to torts and other financial liability that the business may have. Agency, general partners are the agents of the partnership, not the limited partners. Termination, general partners have the right to transfer their interest in the partnership. So, back to the car washing scenario. Say Tim is rich and decides to loan me $100,000 to start up this car wash business. Then he would therefore be a limited partner and I would be the general partner. I would run the car wash business and Tim would be the financier of that business. But he wouldn't have much say in how the business is conducted. Limited Liability Corporation, LLC. An LLC is its own entity. It may be formed by one or more persons. A person doesn't have to be a physical human being. A person could be a corporation, a partnership, or trust. Capitalization is flexible with investors. Basically, anyone can invest in an LLC. Management, all members of the LLC have the right to manage, but there's usually some type of board of directors. When it says that any member has the right to be a manager, that basically means there's room for promotion. So back to the car wash example, if there was a who would be the bottom of the barrel in a car wash, like the guy that drives the cars, I guess. If he worked there for a year, he's in the business, and me running the place decides that he should be promoted, I have the right to promote him to a higher level to the point where he could manage. So since he's a member of the business, he could earn the right to eventually help manage the car wash business. An LLC is taxed as a partnership or a corporation. It really just kind of depends on how they file with their taxes, because they can be taxed either or. They can be taxed as a corporation or as a partnership, as a separate taxed as a partnership, meaning that it would be as an extension of the owners, and a corporation, it would be taxed as if it's its own separate entity. Liability, LLC assumes almost all the responsibility. Members do not. So Tim and I, if we wreck a car while we're doing a car wash business, or one of the employees does because they're incompetent, then Tim and I personally wouldn't be held liable. The company itself would be held liable. So if that person wanted to sue for damaging the car, then they'd sue the company, not us. Agency, LLC members act as agents of for normal business affairs. So that being said, normal business affairs would be washing the cars. So if one of the car washers decided to take one of the cars and go joyriding and crash the car, then that person wouldn't be acting as an agent because he wouldn't be conducting a normal business affair. He took the car joyriding. Termination, members may transfer their financial rights, but not transfer their interests in the company. So that's kind of self-explanatory, and I don't know how to explain that any further. Because, yeah. A corporation is the most complicated type of business. A corporation is its own entity, and it's considered to be its own person, it's not a physical being, it's just a thing created based on state statutes and laws. It's governed under state and federal laws. It's its own separate thing. Capitalization, a variety of investors and shareholders. So the easiest way to explain that would be, without trying to sound like an economics class, anyone can invest in a corporation. They sell and trade stock in that company, which is how that company gains capital. Management, officers conduct business under the supervision of a board of directors. So say Tim and I's, whatever, our car wash business becomes huge, and we have chains of car wash businesses all over the country. And since Tim and I owned the car wash business for a while, we turned it into a corporation. We wouldn't be the owners necessarily. There would be a CFO and a CEO, the officers of that corporation. Now, it just wouldn't be Tim and I. We'd have there'd be a lot of officers, but just try and keep it simple. Tim and I are the officers of that. Or no. I just confused myself because all this freaking fireworks. We would be on the board of directors of that business, and we would appoint officers to conduct the business. So Tim and I would serve on the board of directors, and we might hire Abby and Laura to be officers to conduct the daily business and manage it itself. Taxes, corporation reserves the right to choose its own tax year. So that is pretty big, because instead of the year ending on January 1st and ending on December 31st, the corporation can choose when its fiscal year ends. So if it's more advantageous to end the fiscal year in October, then the fiscal year can go from September, October. Or October, November. Yeah, October, November. It just depends on what that company decides to choose its fiscal year as. It will pay an income tax and special taxes, just because it's a corporation. Liability, there is almost no personal liability to any of the officers of the board or the board of directors, unless they specifically committed a type of tort or broke the law. But a company itself, much like an LLC, if it's conducting business properly and an accident happens in the course of that business, like one of the employees scratches a car while washing the car, then none of the owners will be held personally liable. The company will. Agencies, all the employees, members, board of directors, officers, all of the members are agents of that particular company. And the corporation potentially has the ability to last forever, unless it goes under or gets bought out and renamed, but that's a separate process. But anyone can basically transfer their interest to anyone. So, Tim and I start this car wash corporation, or start the car wash business. It turns into a corporation, and it's 2017 now, and it, is going on forever. And then 50 years from now, I retire. I mean, the business could still be going on, even though I retire, Tim retires, and, assuming the business as well, it could last for centuries. It just has to refile and renew itself, but it has the ability to last almost indefinitely. And that's about it. Hope I explained this decent enough. I'm not the best with fact patterns and coming up with things like that, but I tried. And these fireworks are really aggravating. They've been going on all day. My poor dog's barking and whining. Anyway, I hope that was easy to digest, and I'll see you guys next week, I'm assuming. Alright, be safe, everyone.